Welcome to the final video in the series, The Art of Validation. In this video, we're going to look at a fourfold progression in regards to this goal of understanding. So here's the first part. Number one, seek to understand feelings, not thoughts or information. Usually in a disagreement, people tell their version of the story, thoughts, events, data. Listen for how these things made your partner feel. How did they experience the information and the events in that story? It's probable that the feelings they are describing do not all lay at your feet. They may describe the feelings of being unloved, unwanted, undervalued, unappreciated, unseen, unheard. Lots of them. But likely, these feelings come from other sources too. But in an argument, the sources of these feelings don't matter. If you're not validating your spouse's feelings, it's possible that energy will be directed at you even though you're not the one that created them. What matters is that you care that you may have contributed to these feelings that likely originated from other sources. What matters is that you care how these feelings have impacted your spouse. Now, since we've already discussed that someone has to go first, you may be the one to go first and realize that those feelings are important. They're important enough to understand and care about. If you make it a mission to understand these feelings and like a treasure hunt to discover where these feelings come from, and it's likely you're not going to become defensive, assuming that you are the source. Generally speaking, men come to conversation knowing how they experience something and are able to somewhat speak to it. They often struggle talking about the emotional impact of the experience, but that's different for women. Women generally come to a conversation to use the conversation to figure out how they feel about something, but they have to express thoughts, information, and data in a place that's safe enough to get out those feelings. Be that safe place. So to understand those feelings first, not the thoughts or the information, listen for emotional words, not thoughts. Afraid, worried, anger, hurt, betrayed, confused, wounded, alone. If you do not hear emotional words, ask for them. Seek to understand feelings, not thoughts or information. This is so valuable. All right, second part of this process. Once feelings are understood, they are better stated. So when you begin to understand how someone feels, it opens a floodgate for your partner to communicate on deeper levels about those feelings. And feeling understood by you provides you a great advantage. Trust me. All you have to do is stay with your partner's feelings. If they drift into thoughts, bring them back and allow them to unpack those feelings without judgment. This leads us then to the third part of our process. Once feelings are better stated, people back off of their intensity. The biggest reason tensions escalate in a conflict or a disagreement is because nobody gets it. Once you feel understood, the need for an emotional escalation goes away. To ignore this is to play emotional tennis where everyone plays but nobody ever wins. Validation is how you put this cycle of insanity to a stop. So again, once feelings are understood or stated, people back off of the intensity of their emotions. The emotion has to be stated by the person trying to validate. You feel unappreciated. You feel unwanted. You feel abandoned. And then the real winning comment, please tell me more about that. I'll get to that a little bit later. But as soon as it's stated with sincerity, emotions often turn into tears, and you may even hear the words, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Now this brings us to the fourth part. People back off their emotions when you invite their feelings. The effective way to invite someone's feelings is to ask, please tell me more. I want to know more about that, not less. All right, let me deviate for just a second here. I know I'm passionate about this, but I love this stuff. We all know that it's generally a rude thing to cut someone off in a conversation. Sometimes when I start my work with a couple, they'll come in and they'll say, I don't really like being interrupted by them, their partner. All right, what I'm about to tell you is a trade secret. I use this all the time with my work with couples, and I hope it's a help to you. When it comes to understanding someone's feelings, no one minds being interrupted. Think about that. The fact is, I've never had an exception here. Someone in my office will be going on in an emotional moment about something. They state something that's happened, very important to them, and they're going on and on. They have the floor, and then they indicate how they feel. And I'll hear someone say something like, and so I felt so rejected. And then they kind of just run on, and they just keep going, and they keep talking. I try to rein them in, and I ask them, hold on just a second. Wait just 1 second. And I cut them off. Could you tell me more about that feeling of rejection that you just mentioned? Most of the time, it stops them in their tracks, and they get visibly emotional. Why? Because they're not used to someone validating their feelings who seems to care. And I don't rush a moment like that. And neither should you. Let that sink in for just a minute as you think about your relationship and perhaps the number of times when your spouse communicated a deep emotional hurt and you ran past it like it never happened. In your marriage, when is the last time your spouse was validated by their feelings by someone who cared and didn't have any other agenda but to understand? When's the last time in your marriage you felt validated? Folks, this is some serious stuff, and I really hope this is sinking in because you have the capacity to change your marriage literally in days if you would begin to put these steps into play with your spouse when you communicate. All right, I want to kind of start wrapping this whole series up with some questions that I think are very important to answer. Are you willing to make validation a regular part of your communication, not just during conflict? Are you clear on the predictable advantages of validation in conversation? Is your goal in validation to understand where your spouse is coming from? And are you willing to go first? I'm hopeful that you've watched this whole video series as a couple, but you may have watched it by yourself. That's okay. Because one person can change the trajectory of a relationship if they're willing to make some hard change and then be consistent. And that may be you. It's likely that one or both of you feel like you've been making all the effort, and you may have even said, I'm tired of always having to go first while my needs go unmet. So to that I would say, try again, but now with a better understanding of what validation is and how it applies and can change your relationship. It may be helpful to let this information settle a little bit, maybe go back and watch the videos again as a part of a process of understanding. If we here at Tricord can answer any questions you may have, I'd just ask you to email us and the link provided and let us know how we can serve you. It's been a real privilege to provide these resources for you, and we wish you well in healthy relationships as you build better communication, as you have better conflict, and as you enjoy more quality time with your spouse. One last reminder, you're not crazy, and likely neither is your spouse. So let's put these tools to some use and tell each other that what you have to offer is important, and I want to understand it.